If you watch this video to the end, you will understand why the smartest people in the world are quietly moving their money out of the system, while the rest of the world sleeps soundly. And once you understand that, the way you look at the bills in your wallet will never be the same again. Imagine you are living inside a magnificent castle, where every brick is held together by an invisible glue called trust. You believe that the plastic card in your wallet, the numbers on your phone screen, and above all, the US dollar, are immutable realities, as certain as the sun rising in the east. But what would happen if that glue were drying out, becoming brittle, and beginning to crack apart piece by piece? This is not a science fiction scenario. This is what is happening, right now, on the global financial chessboard. For more than 80 years since the Bretton Woods Conference of 1944, the world has operated under a single order, Pax Americana. The United States was not only the world's police force but also the central bank of the entire planet. Every nation was required to stockpile US Treasury bonds like a financial talisman. But there is a truth that few dare to state plainly: that order was not built on gold or tangible assets. It was built on the promise of a colossal debtor. And when that debtor began using its own currency as a weapon, everything changed. Nations that had once trusted the system began to realize a chilling truth: the money they had lent to America was not truly their asset. It was a hostage in Washington's hands. Within just 12 months, key nations of the BRICS bloc sold off more than $161 billion in Treasury bonds. To put that in perspective, that figure is enough to run the entire economy of several mid-sized countries for a full decade. This was not a routine profit-taking move, not a seasonal portfolio adjustment. This was a great migration of capital. When China, India, and Brazil pressed the sell button in unison, they were not merely discarding debt certificates. They were discarding an old order, quietly, deliberately, and irreversibly. US Treasury bonds are the lifeblood sustaining America's war machine and welfare apparatus. Every $1 billion sold off is one less heartbeat. Look at China. Beijing's holdings of US Treasury bonds have fallen below $700 billion, the lowest level since May of 2009. At their peak in 2013, that figure exceeded $1,300 billion. That means in less than a decade, Beijing has quietly shed nearly half of the American debt it once held. They did not do it all at once to trigger panic. They did it like a python constricting its prey, slow, steady, and inevitable. India has not stood on the sidelines either. New Delhi has intensified trade in rupees and gradually shifted reserves toward tangible assets. Brazil, under President Lula, has publicly called for an end to dollar dominance in bilateral trade. But the most painful blow did not come from a rival. It came from America's closest ally. London, the financial heart of the Western world, just executed a move of classic betrayal, at the very moment Washington was tightening its financial noose around Beijing. London rolled out the red carpet and flung open the doors for the Chinese yuan to flood into Europe. To understand why London dared to do this, you must forget every speech ever made about the special Anglo-American relationship. In the world of money, there is only one religion: liquidity. London is not an ordinary city. It is an independent financial entity, controlling nearly 43% of global foreign exchange transactions. For every 2 currencies exchanged on Earth, nearly one of them must pass through London's servers. After the shock of Brexit, Britain fell into a severe capital drought. Trillions of dollars in assets fled to Frankfurt and Paris. London faced a life or death choice: either continue as a loyal but increasingly impoverished shadow of the United States, or become the transit hub for a new stream of money flowing in from the East. And they chose the latter, without hesitation. According to data from the international payments industry, London is now the largest yuan trading center outside of China, accounting for more than 25% of global yuan payment market share. This means a European company wanting to trade with China, without passing through Washington's filters, only needs to go through the London Gateway and pay in yuan. No permission required, no fear of surveillance. London is playing the role of a financial transformer station. It receives alternating current from the dollar-denominated West, converts it into direct current yuan for the East, and collects fees in the middle. This is a pragmatism so cold it borders on ruthlessness. London understands clearly that the dollar empire is sinking deeper into debt, and it has no intention of being dragged into the grave alongside a dying giant. The agreement Britain signed with the People's Bank of China to extend their currency swap arrangement is the clearest proof of this. They are building a life raft called the Yuan, so that when the dollar ship begins to sink, London will already have it ready to board. And while London builds its infrastructure, the BRICS bloc has launched a direct assault on America's ultimate weapon. For decades, US Treasury bonds were a seductive trap. America printed money, used it to buy goods from the rest of the world, and the world then used that very money to buy back US Treasury bonds. An endless loop that allowed Washington to live lavishly on the labor of everyone else. But the BRICS nations identified the fatal weakness. If the United States could freeze $300 billion of Russia's reserves with a single executive order in 2022, then the bonds held by China or India were nothing more than phantom numbers. Hostages in Washington's hands, and the sell-off of $161 billion was the act of rescuing those hostages. What matters is not what they sold, but what they bought in its place. Gold, the metal that Western economists have long mocked as an obsolete relic, has officially surpassed US Treasury bonds in the global reserve holdings of central banks. According to data compiled through the end of 2025. This is the first time since 1996 that gold has outweighed US Treasuries in official central bank reserves worldwide. This is a genuine coup in the philosophy of asset management. A US Treasury bond is a promise to repay a debt. Gold is actual value. In a world where trust between great powers has already shattered, a promise becomes the cheapest thing on the market. Central banks have been purchasing more than 1,000 tons of gold per year in both 2022 and 2023, the highest levels since the 1960s. They are not buying gold to make jewelry. They are constructing a financial nuclear shelter. Gold carries no counterparty risk. Gold cannot be frozen by a sanctions order. Gold cannot be printed by a desperate central bank governor. When the BRICS nations shift from paper to physical, they are sending an ironclad message to the West: we no longer trust your ink. We want something with real weight. When giants like China and London begin to move, smaller nations are the first to feel the tremors. This is the brutal domino effect of financial fragmentation. Developing countries are caught in a vice. Either choose the dollar side to preserve ties with the West while facing the risks of America's runaway inflation and debt burden, or choose the BRICS side to benefit from new capital flows while bracing for savage punitive measures from Washington. Look at Egypt, Pakistan, and Argentina. They are confronting an acute shortage of dollar liquidity. The reason is simple: when the US raises interest rates to defend the currency's value and attract bond buyers, capital is sucked back to America from poorer nations like a colossal pump running without pause. Within America itself, the consequences are even more bitter. When the world stops buying its bonds, Washington must choose one of two paths. Either raise interest rates to extreme levels to attract buyers, which will suffocate the domestic economy and collapse the real estate market, or allow the Federal Reserve to print money and buy back its own bonds, which will trigger inflation that spirals beyond control. Both paths lead to the same destination: the purchasing power in the hands of ordinary Americans withers away. The United States is now paying nearly $1 trillion per year just in interest on its debt. That figure has already surpassed the defense budget. This means every dollar of tax paid by an American citizen is no longer going toward building bridges or launching warships. It is going to feed the creditors who are fleeing the system. So who wins in this chaos? The agile nations, those playing both sides, selling oil priced in yuan, accumulating gold reserves, yet keeping one foot inside the dollar system. This is the tightrope strategy being quietly practiced by many Southeast Asian nations and Gulf states. But that flexibility is fragile. When two elephants fight, the grass beneath them is always the first to be trampled. The true victims are individual investors, those who still believe their savings accounts are completely safe. Meanwhile, central banks, the shrewdest players in the market, quietly jumped ship long ago. We are entering an era where fragmentation is no longer a forecast but an irreversible reality. Do not expect a dramatic collapse like an action movie, where the dollar turns to worthless paper overnight. The reality is far more subtle and far more frightening. It is the birth of parallel underground systems, financial moles tunneling beneath the foundations of the old order. China and the BRICS nations are piloting mBRIDGE, a central bank digital currency system that allows countries to transact directly with each other. without any intervention from the Western banking system. This is not Bitcoin. This is state power digitized, operating like an underground pipeline network transporting value across borders, leaving no trace for American oversight agencies to follow. Alongside this, gold is being tokenized to enhance liquidity. Instead of shipping heavy physical bars, nations will exchange gold-backed digital certificates on blockchain platforms. This is how the BRICS bloc combines the trustworthiness of an ancient physical asset with the speed of modern technology, forging a financial weapon the world has never seen before. The West is building a fortress economy model, pulling allies like Japan, Australia, and South Korea into a closed loop. The BRICS bloc is securing resource dominance across Africa and South America. London, with the instincts of a broker, will attempt to maintain its position as the transit gateway between the two fortresses. But the price it pays will be increasingly intense scrutiny from Washington, and the growing risk of being forced to choose sides, triggering a profound diplomatic crisis within NATO itself. Looking at the full picture, there is a naked truth no one wants to state plainly: the American financial empire is not collapsing because it was attacked militarily. It is being ground down by its own debtors. With the national debt hitting $38 trillion US. America is no longer a safe haven. It has become a financial black hole, pulling everything around it inward with no possibility of escape. That colossal debt is a slow-burning bomb, and the detonator sits in the hands of Beijing, New Delhi, and Brasilia. Every $1 billion of bonds sold off shortens the time remaining on that fuse. London's handshake with Beijing is the clearest signal yet. Even the closest allies have begun to smell the burning of a coming collapse. The order being formed will not be built on the values of freedom or democracy. It will be built on the weight of gold, the control of resources, and the mastery of digital payment technology. In this new world, power does not belong to whoever has the fastest money printer. It belongs to whoever controls the tangible, and maintains independence within the flow of capital. Loyalty is dead. Pragmatism is the only law that remains. When a system built on hollow promises begins to crack, the world will not ask how many numbers you have in your bank account. It will ask how much real, tangible value you hold in your hands. Stay sharp, because in the shadow of the truth, only those who understand the rules of the game will avoid becoming dinner for the sharks. Welcome to the new order, where the truth is the most expensive weapon you can own. Thank you for listening. See you again in the next hidden corner of this world.